Once a cop, let it knock, yeah. For one thing, we should celebrate redemption instead of condemning it. Corey Pegues, what up? Talk your truth, bruh. Check it out. Once a cop.
Welcome to Corey's Corner, where we bring you conversations that speak truth to power. Today, we're sitting down with a brother I have a lot of respect for, New York City public advocate Jumaane Williams, a powerful voice for justice and equity, a proud Brooklyn native and first-generation Grenadian American. Jumaane has overcome personal challenges like Tourette's and ADHD to become a tireless advocate for the people. He served for over a decade on the New York City Council representing Brooklyn's 45th District before being elected public advocate in 2019. Since then, he's passed more legislation than any of his predecessors, fighting for affordable housing, police accountability, and protections for working families. Often seen on the front lines to protests and policy, Jumaane blends activism with action and holding City Hall accountable while pushing for real systemic change. A father, husband, public advocate, community watchdog, voice for the voiceless. Let's welcome New York City public advocate Jumaane Williams.
Appreciate you, sir.
So happy you came on.
I'm glad I can make it.
Pull up a seat. You're now in Corey's Corner, where right conversations matter.
Yeah.
I'm your host, Corey Pegues, and I always keep it right, not real. Before I continue, I want to give a big shout out to my sponsors who help make Corey's Corners possible. Vodka, the bold spirit that's refined in the game. Whether you're celebrating milestones or just vibing with your circle, do it with Vodka, where vodka meets tequila with no apologies. And much respect to Corrupt Mob MC, riding with pride, power, and purpose. Thank you to both of you entities for supporting Corey's Corner. Many people don't know, when I was commanding officer of the 67th Precinct, you was a first-term city council member.
Yes, sir.
And I have to publicly put this out here because people don't know. Everybody's talking about cannabis reform and making it legal. I remember you was a first-time city council member. You was in my office almost all your staff, like every other day, talking about Commander. Your cops are locking people up for bags of weed on the corner. They're locking people up for smoking. And I would go to roll calls and say, yo, stop locking people up. And look how the pendulum swung to now that it's legal, but you don't get the credit. You was talking about this way before it was sexy. And I was a commander in like 2008 at the 6-7 precinct. You was way ahead of this stuff.
Nah, I appreciate that. So the one thing, I think there's a lot of voices on it, pushing it, not enough back then. I think there's a lot of things we talk about now that people kind of take for granted. I came in with the mission of like trying to change the way I saw things operate. So that was one of the things. And one of the things you got to try to do is not worry about the credit. Everybody likes their name mentioned, but like really try to focus on the work for the work's sake. If the credit comes, it's great. If it don't, not, if I win an election, great. If I don't, I might not. But really focus on what I can assess and know is to be true. And back then, what I knew was they were abusing stop, question, and frisk. And one of the things that they were doing was some of these marijuana stuff. And actually, they were kind of misinforming people, having them take it out their pocket. Once it's out in the air, it becomes something else. It's a whole nother conversation. So we knew we needed to make those changes. So I really just wanted to harp on things that I know is true, that's fair, and is equitable. And it turns out we were correct on that.
Yes. You recently became a father. Beautiful young lady.
Yeah.
You actually have 2 daughters.
Yeah. This is.
You recently just had a child.
Yeah.
How has that changed your perspective on working for
It's phenomenal. So I met my bonus daughter when she was 8. She's about to turn 17. So that was wild. And then I had my wife and I had a daughter who's 3 now, Monty. It's incredible. And so I got elected in 2009, and I became councilman in 2010. And the stuff that you work on, like, it hits you, but it's different when you have children. So now, like when I hear a story, I'm going through something, I'm thinking about something. Like I'm worried about my daughter on the train. Like, so I was worried about other people's daughters on the train. Now I'm worried about my daughter. I'm worried about the violence. I'm worried about my wife when she. Like it does give a different lens when you have kids. These stories hit you differently when you hear about a child or something like that. You always felt bad, But now you're imagining, oh my God, like you can really understand. That's a different kind of love, man. Like I don't think people can understand what it's like. It's like your heart outside of your body. It's a whole another thing.
What's been your biggest challenge balancing family and public advocate office?
It's still a challenge, but I do want to just say, I was, shout out to my wife, India Sneed. Shout out to the kid. I was always concerned if I would be a good father or a good husband, and they'd give me an opportunity to show that. So that's just a blessing. I don't think I'd be here without the Most High one in therapy. So I'm a big proponent of therapy, and I would spend about 9 years. So I think it really, really helped me prepare for this. So while it's still a challenge, I think there's some things that I worked on that I think is helpful. We still got to do the work-life balance, and my wife has her law firm and stuff like that. But I think I came into this understanding things I didn't before, which is, you got to make time for family. And also, I had life and work just used to merge. So if I take a call, that's work. Like I might act like it's a real quick call, but that's work. If I'm running somewhere, just real quick, that's work. So really understand the importance of vacation. I went a decade without a vacation. That don't make any sense. So kind of understand those things before I started doing the family. It's just really helpful, even though there's it's still challenges there.
People don't realize, but he is one step away from being a mayor of New York City. And it almost happened. It almost happened in the last year and a half. And if we didn't elect the president that's the president now, Jumaane Williams would be the mayor of New York City. People don't realize, you're one step away.
Yeah,
if something happens to the mayor or the mayor steps down, you're up next.
Yeah, and unfortunately, our common brothers had some problems, and so it almost came to pass. I would say in my mind, one of the biggest protections for some things not to go the way it did was because of me. Like, there's a lot of folks who are always concerned about Jumaane in a situation like that.
Right.
So what I find amusing now is I call folks and I'm not even sure if I want to do this job, but people should do what they need to do, because I think this city is not helped by having an Adams administration. That's a different conversation.
Right.
But everybody was always worried about me, concerned about me. So now it's hilarious to see everybody have to deal with Zoran Mamdani. Like, I'm sitting back eating popcorn. It's amazing to me. Y'all was so worried about me. Here we go.
Exactly. So, can you tell us a bit about your relationship with the mayor? Well, I know that the relationship is, it is what it is. Listen, everybody's not going to like one another. It is what it is. What's your relationship, being that you're second in charge? Like, I think y'all should have a great relationship.
I would think so, too. Let me say, I'm up front, so y'all know where I'm coming from at the end. The best thing about the Adams administration, there's only 4 months left. That's the absolute best thing about it.
I agree. 4 months.
It's a wrap. And that's painful for me to say, as a black man who's elected official, to another black man who's an even more powerful elected official. That is a painful thing and a painful realization to come to. And I didn't come to it lightly. But this mayor, the most consistent intentional or not intentional errors over a long time span. Like, it is a choice of how you lead. And the truth is, at this point, this administration is either going to be remembered for the most corrupt and ethical, or the most inept, unable to manage. Like, that's the only categories you're going to be in. The mayor seems to live in the constant intersection of what's the most unethical but not illegal. And that's a bad intersection to be living in and to be trying to govern on. I'm not even sure if he remembers what's truth and not anymore when I hear him speak. It is an unfortunate thing to have to acknowledge, but what I have realized is that, and I want people not to be confused anymore, is sometimes we confuse black persons doing better with black people doing better. Yeah. And that's a really important thing people need to remember. Just because you have black folks in power, that's me included. Like, I'm not holier than thou. We have a lot of power now, but black folks still catching hell. 200,000 of them had to leave the city because they couldn't afford it, while people like me were going into power. So what's the point of going into power if you, if you're not going to feel the impact? And that's for everybody. Like, I think That administration has hurt black and brown leadership going forward. I think he squandered an amazing opportunity to do some good things, and it is very unfortunate. I am glad that there's still some good people who are in this city and in city government keeping things going, and I credit them, but not Eric Adams.
I think the mayor has taken black people back. I don't think we're going to have this power for at least 30 years. I mean, we had the mayor, we had the police commissioner,
Man,
we had so many, we had corrections commissioner, we had everything, and he just blew it. But what do you see as his most pressing failure in leadership?
I have realized that people, like, you should not go in there to diversify foolishness. You should go in there to change it. And so there are systems and systemic issues that have been concerning our community for a very, very long time. And I don't think people wanted people to diversify things that have harmed them. They wanted us to change it. And he had a great opportunity. The decisions he made, I understand, some of the hires, man, everybody, it is too much. And what's painful also is I know some of the folks, the names and news. It is painful to see people. And so I really try. I mean, I'm going to be truthful. It is really hard for me to see and even talk about some folks that I've known for a very long time. But as mayor, you got to make different decisions, bro. And this is consistent over years. This is not a one-time. And I want to say this because none of us, you, me, anybody who's listening, can survive a microscope. If somebody puts a microscope into our life, you're going to see something. There's no way around it. Eric Adams can't survive plain view. And that's the problem. That's the problem I have. I know everybody has issues, but plain view is a problem. And this is consistent. And then people don't remember, I don't remember the How Many Stops Act that we just passed. It was incredible to watch that happen. We don't have to go into what it is. You can Google it, but it's just a reporting bill. You don't even know we've already got 2 reports. They told you the whole sky was going to crumble and everything was going to fall apart on a bill the mayor supported when he ran. And then BS'd everybody about what the bill does and doesn't do. And on any given day, he's either the mayor that has saved the city from violence or the city that needs the mayor because it's too violent. And it could be in the same freaking day.
So what do you think is the current state of New York City in your view?
So the truth of the matter, Eric Adams, Andrew Cuomo, even Donald Trump, they have some really, I think, destructive tendencies. And even a lot of folks in the Democratic Party, and we could talk about, a lot of this, but people benefit off of fear. People get elected off of fear.
Yes.
And that is a very harmful thing. So the mayor he is dealing with the lies he told when he ran about how dangerous it's not, what's causing the dangerousness. And so being able to, at the same time, talk about the problems we actually have. There are some issues. And there are real people who are dealing with violence and dealing with issues. And data don't mean a damn to them. You could say all the data you want, but it doesn't mean anything to them, and it shouldn't. You have to be able to have that conversation while be able to put it in context so that we don't overuse the tools that we have to address the problem. You look at bail reform now, everybody jumps up and down, nobody looks at the numbers. You got Donald Trump talking about it, you got Stefanik talking about it, you got the mayor backing them up. You look at Texas, which is Republican run, New York State is quote, by the number, safer than Texas. Houston, Texas, per capita, is much more violent than us and even has more property crime. Austin, Dallas, all of those places are more violent. So why do you want to make your laws more like them? Why don't we really figure out what's going on and keep working on what is actually working? So I think the most pressing issue is a lack of actually having leadership that will push back on the fear with the reality. And quite frankly, with my Democrats, what I hope they learn, people have been saying for a long time, they can't live here, it's unaffordable, and they're worried about the crime and stuff. And we just haven't addressed it. And I'm gonna go off a little topic, but In 2008, people who probably don't own a black toothbrush voted for Barack Obama. They then voted for Donald Trump. They were sending a clear message of the type of messaging they want. It's a more populist one. It's not the same old messengers. My party continued to send the same messenger and the same message. We got lucky with Biden because of COVID. And now we're back to where we were. And now you have someone like Zoran that everybody now wants to pile up again and try to figure out, well, what is it that worked? So, we have Donald Trump because I think Democratic leadership failure. Had we stepped up in a way that I think we could have, I don't think we'd be here. But you have people like the mayor and Andrew Cuomo who have a certain way of doing things. But thank God for the egos of men because they're both doing this, and I think it's helping them down. So.
Do you believe in defunding the police?
I believe that was a really bad slogan, and I think most people agree with the tenets of what people were saying if you take that slogan away. And I always remind folks, people remember Obamacare. You had people literally who had no teeth and need dental care and have not been to the doctor saying they don't want Obamacare, but they wanted the American Care Act health insurance, not realizing the same thing. That's because people misuse and allow people to misuse slogans. So instead of the Democrats, they use that as an excuse not to do things that they want to do. And I was telling folks, why are you arguing with people in the street who are in pain? Why don't you figure out what the pain is and fix it? So everybody would agree that law enforcement should not be the first people addressing mental health. And everybody would agree that we may need to use some of the funding to fund people who are doing it. That's it.
That's it. But people just, it's the word. Whoever, I hate the person that came up with that word.
People was angry and mad. You screaming at people who are angry and mad in the street, protesting. Democrats going to try to out-Republican Republicans in their responses. But let me just say one more thing on that.
Go ahead.
Because I have 3 questions that I usually ask most crowds when we talk about public safety. How many people think that crime is an issue that we got to address? Raise your hand. How many people think law enforcement are partners in trying to address that? Raise your hand. How many people think they could do it by themselves? So the most Republican space I go to the most Democratic space I go to, people answer that for the most part, yes, yes, no. And that third question is where we have the most opportunity and where we struggle the most. And I think that is because people, like some of the leaders we have, benefit by mucking up that space and pushing as much fear as possible so they can look like the saviors. Peace and blessings, love and light, everybody. This is New York City Public Advocate Jumaane Williams, and you're listening to Corey's Corner, where he always keeps it right, not real.
And now we're going to go into this segment called Spitfire.
Let's go.
I'm going to ask you questions, 1 minute, rapid fire. You give me one word answer, or yes or no. In one word, describe Mayor Eric Adams.
Squandered opportunity. Time to go.
Favorite borough?
Yo, I'm citywide, but everybody knows I reek of Brooklyn wherever I go, and there's nothing I can do about it, and I'm very proud of it. So I'll just keep it that way. But, every borough, because I represent the entire city of New York.
Your comms manager say, you better say Brooklyn. I better not go in there and say, yo, I love the Bronx.
I'm a citywide elected official, and that's what I'm sticking with, but everybody knows how I smell.
Brooklyn all day. Should New York City have ranked choice voting for all elections?
I think we need to have ranked choice voting for more elections. There's some other stuff happening that I don't think we should do at the same time.
One word that defines your leadership style.
I think I'm an empath, and my North Star is love and justice.
Do you plan to run for mayor one day?
That is not in my plans.
Yankees or Mets?
Mets.
Wow.
That's quick.
What's one New York City law you would scrap today?
What's one New York City law I would scrap today? I don't know, man. I'm into systemic change, and so laws are important. It's a long answer, but laws are important, but they don't by themselves don't always cause a systemic change. And one thing I just love to do is really change how we're talking about public safety and restructure it. So I don't know if I could think of one law. Maybe I'll think of some before.
Okay. Is New York City safer now than it was 3 years ago?
Likely, but the country is safer. That's the country is declining.
One word to.
But by the way, that means nothing to the person who's dealing with some really bad violence.
Absolutely. One word to describe your vision for New York.
Equitable.
Now, a word from our sponsors.
This is not your average vodka. This is Vodkila, a decade of cultured excellence. The best of both worlds, the true taste of victory. A delicious dyad spirit, the world's finest blend of vodka and tequila. Vodkila, the perfect blend. From rooftop parties to quiet moments with friends, Vodkila brings the flavor, the fire, and the unforgettable. So pour it, share it, live it. Vodkila. Visit vodkila.net and order yours today.
Now, before we dive into the next segment, I want to talk about something personal. I'm the author of this book, Once a Cop, The Street, The Law, Two Worlds, One Man, where I laid my life out. It actually got turned into a feature documentary called A Cops and Robbers Story, which is streaming now on Hulu and Apple TV. You can read the book or watch the movie if you're a visual person. Now let's get back to the conversation. What's your view on the direction Mayor Adams has taken the New York City Police Department?
I think that's probably one of the places public safety is a space he squandered the most. Ain't nobody go through 4 commissioners and 3. That's just not a thing. What frustrates me about the mayor also is that, I mean, now he's recently talking about mistakes, but before that, in his mind, he never made a mistake before recently. No self-reflection. Transparency wasn't, it was bad. And I actually had more faith in Jessica Tisch than I did the mayor. I've lost complete faith and confidence in this mayor to be able to lead this city, period. It's just time to move on. I thought she was doing some things. I am a little bit more concerned than I was now, because you know this more than most, it is very difficult to find an administrative judge in the NYPD to recommend firing someone. Well, they did that in the Alan Felice case, where a young man was shot and killed unarmed. The administrative judge even questioned whether the officer was telling the truth. Jessica Tisch decided to overturn that, which is amazingly disappointing, because the next week she decided to fire 31 officers who through no fault of their own were hired in a way that she's pointing out, which doesn't make sense to me. So I'm very concerned about that. I will say this: in the past 3-4 months, I've gotten calls from police, corrections officers, probation officers. You know, I'm not their first or second call.
Right.
So when I'm getting those calls, there's a problem.
Yes.
And I think it goes all the way back to the failure of Eric Adams. He told us this was one place he was going to make sure was handled correctly. So he can't say he doesn't know. He can't say he doesn't know the department. So I think all roads lead to a failed leadership of Eric Adams.
You've been very vocal about police accountability. How do you balance public safety and reform?
Well, I think I've tried to stop. I don't always get away. I've tried to stop talking about the issues of reform. Like, I think we just need new systems. I don't know reform is going to do it. And I realize, there's always bad apples. I don't know getting rid of bad apples is going to do it. I think there's a fundamental conversation about how, when, and why we use police, period. And until we get to that, it doesn't matter. Because if you're using police incorrectly, you're going to continue to cause more harm. And with accountability, everybody agrees it has to have accountability for law enforcement. Not having accountability makes it harder for the men and women that come to work every day trying to do the right thing. That makes it more difficult for them. And so, if the places we need the most help is where we struggle the most, which is why I was disappointed, because it looked like Commissioner Tisch was coming in and going to do some actual accountability measures. Not everywhere agreement, but some of the things I've seen have been problematic. But public safety is a broader conversation, and I think we keep trying to tie it simply to police. And I'll say this: I ask people sometimes just to think of a community they deem safe. Nobody has ever mentioned a community that has sent the most people to Rikers or have the most police on it right now. Matter of fact, they deem that as unsafe. And that doesn't mean our law enforcement don't have a role to play, but that just means a community that we deem safe, that's not what the over-reliance is on. So those communities have access to more than just potato chips at the corner store for grocery shopping. They have nurses and sports programs in their schools, mental health access. They have housing that they can afford, that's safe, that's not moldy. All of those things. That doesn't give you an excuse to shoot up the streets. You have to have accountability for that as well, too. But, we're trying to arrest the children of the people we arrested 20 years ago, thinking that's going to have a different impact. And we know what works. When we fund and structuralize what works, we see results. But people like the mayor, the former governor, the president, they know fear is really strong. And people feed off of it. And then we like quick fixes. Anything can't fix it, well, send the cops. They have limited tools. And when they use those tools, rightfully, they're going to be scrutinized. But it's unfair to them and it's unfair to the community. And that's the balance we have to have.
And I always say that you need an atomic bomb to blow up the criminal justice system. You can't, with policing, they started with slave patrol. So you can't just keep this going and think it's going to get fixed. You got to, blow up the court system, probation, police, everything, start from scratch and build it tier by tier.
I always say is that, the systems are working how they were designed.
Exactly.
So, if the forefathers woke up, quote unquote, they would look at it and say, I don't know why women were voting or why you had a black president, but otherwise you did a really good job of pushing forward what it is that we have created. And so, like you said, there's more DNA in police. In the West, it derived from trying to deal with Native Americans. In the East, some of it came from the Bobbies from England trying to shut down labor revolts. In the South, came from our ancestors that they want to try to make sure are doing the work they're supposed to be doing as enslaved human beings. So that's all in the DNA that derived, this country's police system. That doesn't mean that there's not an important role to play that can be played. But like you said, the system has never been operated by rehabilitation. It just has not, and we know this. The recidivism rate is crazy. And the only thing we do when law enforcement and carceral solutions don't work is say we have to send more law enforcement and arrest more people.
Right.
But God forbid a community program don't work. That gotta go. It don't work. It's terrible. Well, wait, hold up, it's been 2 months. But their definition of safe is how many black and brown people can we lock up to keep folks safe?
Let me. So this is what bothers me. I was a cop in 1992. There's no secret. I was selling drugs in the 80s, mid to late 80s. The most violent precincts in New York City when I was selling drugs was Queens, 113, Brooklyn, 6775, Bronx, 4743, Staten Island, 120.
And the most violent precincts now?
Watch this. The most violent precincts today, right now, are the same precincts.
That's correct.
So and the elected officials would say, well, it's safe as it's ever been. But my issue is, let's change it. Let's move it up the tier. I want the 6-7 to be like the Upper West Side. But this how voters don't understand. It's a safe. We know this East Flatbush is safe as it's been since 85.
But because that's another thing you have to put in context. So the city is safer.
Exactly.
But if you look in the percentage of who's stealing most of the violence, it's still these places. And I don't want them to deal with the most violence.
Right.
And then that's why we're sending police, asking for more police, which our community does. One, oftentimes we've been trained to we just want police. But two, I'm like, they've been asking for a whole lot of other stuff too. You didn't hear none of that? You only heard you didn't hear about the housing situation? Right. You didn't ask they asked for their streets to be cleaned up? Mm-hmm. You didn't ask for the funding for their schools, for their child care, for the nutrition? You didn't hear any of those asks. The only ask you heard was you want more law enforcement. That's absurd.
Absurd. What do you think about the mayor's handling, or the police commissioner, mayor and or police commissioner, of Inspector Terrell Anderson, who was made the scapegoat for this psychological scandal that they're saying? It's not even a scandal.
It is now.
Yes. They made it a scandal.
They did.
It wasn't a scandal.
It should have been. So, more. I've been hearing for years that psychic violence has been used to keep out black and brown folks, particularly black folks.
Absolutely.
For years.
Decades.
And this is a paramilitary organization. So to pretend like Torrey Anderson came out here and did some stuff without nobody's approval or without him running through nobody is incredulous. There's no way you can believe that. Second of all, from my understanding, when people didn't pass psych evolve, they got to connect somewhere, usually a little less melanin in their skin. They get to make a phone call and everything's fixed. He went way and above that. He reviewed all of those things and re-interviewed everybody. Like, these don't make sense for various reasons. Right. Now I come to find out some of the folks who did the eval might not have been licensed as psychologists. And so here's a case where the commissioner and the mayor could have really worked with people to change this thing to work correctly. But instead, you may now have some class action lawsuits ahead, and you're trying to fire 31 cops who went through the academy like everybody else, haven't had any issues on their record, but you want to keep the officer that killed Alan Felice, even though your own administrative judge said you should fire him. That doesn't make any sense. And, you know, I found that there are several officers who have tried to do policing in a better way, and they're going after them. And I think that is a part of it as well. But I am thankful that they tapped him to try to address this to begin with. But then now really trying to scapegoat him when he did actually change the ranks to make it more diverse.
Yes.
That was successful. And apparently it worked because these officers haven't had any problems.
That's
How you
right.
retroactively fire people for something that had nothing to do with them?
But you know what? They have opened themselves up to so much litigation. If I'm a defense attorney
Oh, my Lord.
and somebody get locked up and hire me, the first thing I want to know is, when was that officer evaluated?
That's correct.
Did the person have a permit? Was their license? It's so much
silly.
litigation. And it doesn't even make sense.
It's silly. I mean,
let's move the focus on to this. Why is New York City still struggling with affordable housing despite so many promises? Everyone that gets in the seat say they're going to fix affordable housing.
because people get a lot of big checks from a lot of big real estate. This system works for those that it works for, and people want to continue to get wealthy. The housing situation had people, it's only gotten worse. And Mamdani's winning because he's been talking about affordability, and people are just not listening. You know, there's different parts of it, but there's another 3 questions I ask people as well, because part of it lies with us. There's other things you have to do, but I ask people, who here thinks housing homelessness is a big issue in the city? Who thinks the answer to that is housing at a price point that everyone can afford, particularly at low income? Raising. How many people want to live next to a taller building? That question as well is answered from the most leftist place to the most conservative, saying yes, yes, no. Part of the problem is we don't want to build anywhere. We have to build housing. There's nowhere around that. I don't want communities to change overnight, but if we look the same way we did 200 years ago, we wouldn't be here. The reason we're here is because we learned to build up in the subway system. If we look the same way in 200 years, our children's children won't be here because we won't have enough space. And so we have to find a way to build housing, and in exchange for that, you can't be building houses people can't afford.
Right.
And you also have to preserve the housing you have. So the answer is there's no real housing plan that doesn't start with 60 to 70% of preservation, preserving the housing that we have. We've been losing rent regulation housing, which we've helped a little bit, Section 8, with public housing is dilapidating, Michelama. So we have to preserve what we have, and we can't forget about home ownership and affordable home ownership. People are losing their homes through deed theft, particularly black and brown homeowners, particularly black homeowners. And so all of that is a big part of it. It's easier said than done, but there are some things that we can do. Your boy, Mayor Eric Adams, in his tenure.
My boy.
Yeah. In his tenure, the rents have risen 3 years in a row, the highest they've risen in the past 2 decades. And people will he won't take the money. He appoints all the members of the Rent Guidelines Board.
Wow.
And what they use is some rent-regulated owners are dealing with some issues, which they are. And so I hate when they put the small homeowners in the front, usually black and brown. They put them in the front to try to hide some of the bigger people.
Right.
But there are real concerns with some of these buildings. What I am saying is that we can't address those concerns with the raising rents, because all we're doing is increasing homelessness and making people more housing insecure. I think the government needs to step in and help some of these owners who are dealing with issues, whether it's repairs, and get some real financial products that can help them, because some of them are really telling the truth, and they need help, but we know that the help, if we try to get the help from raising rents from everybody, it just doesn't work.
Well, what policies would you introduce to better address homelessness and housing insecurity?
Well, the mayor refused to follow the law on several things. One of them was who can and can't get vouchers. I think some of that has finally started to change. But like I said, one, we have to preserve people in that, which means we want to make sure that people have legal representation when they're in the court like they're supposed to have, so they can make sure they're preserved. We need to do the same thing for people who are facing foreclosure as well. But I do think, one, when it comes to the rent guidelines board, we should split how we're making these decisions, because we make this one size fits all, and that's just not the case. Two, we want to make sure that we are getting assistance to the homeowner, the owners that are actually dealing with some issues, so they can stop hiding behind them. And we have to build more housing, and we should build social housing. I mean, that word scares people, but if we build social housing that people are not paying more than a certain amount of their rent, then you can cross-subsidize high income with low income, and then government can come in and provide more assistance to make it operate. But we have to put more money in to buy down the housing crisis. And we need to get more money into housing vouchers, and we need to crack down on people who are not accepting the housing vouchers. So I've been organized. I was a community organizer before Barack Obama. No one had any idea what that was.
Yes.
My mother asked me, please get a real job, which is a real thing. And it was around housing, and I ran a housing organization. So this is a thing we've been working on for decades.
Yes.
And it's considerably
Well, speaking of that, because that's where you came from, how do we engage more young people in civic life and leadership?
Yeah, it's important. I just looked up, and I'm an OG. So
You unk now?
oh, Lord, bro. I'm about to Unk Chronicles. It's amazing. I told you before this, I threw my back out stretching. I stretch before I go to sleep, all kind of, like, it's crazy. This right here, I hit this every week or two, because this would be like yours.
Yeah.
No,
I just say, I can't do it. It's too much.
I thought I was ready. I'm
white
not.
out. Just white it out. Look, just white it out.
I thought I was ready, and I'm not. I'm fighting it. The sunlight's not my friend here. Like, there's a lot of things going on. I be looking in the mirror, like, what's up? See my pop's face? Like, it's maybe rest in peace. It's crazy, but young people, man, it's really, really important. What I have found, though, is I think young people dislike law enforcement and adults. I don't know who more, but those are often the ones designing programs for them. And so one of the things we have to figure out how to do is how to empower young people to empower young people, to engage young people, to speak their language. And we can't be afraid to set the structure up and let it run. They are rightfully looking at us like, yo, what are you doing? We failed in so many ways that they're now suffering with. But I think we have to be intentional. And I would say this, and I've said this for a while, there is a bunch of young people that whoever's listening now, you walk by every day, probably going to work, you're going to school or something, and you don't say nothing to them. Because the way they look, the way they are, it's a young person. And I just encourage adults and older folks, unks, whatever, to just say good morning. Just say good afternoon. How are you? How was your day? They're going to respond a little strange because that doesn't happen.
Right.
But invisible people act invisible. And so if we're not really seeing them and we just walking by them like they don't exist, I think there's repercussions to that. So that's something I think everybody could do.
We're winding down. Let's get to this nitty gritty. Like 2 more questions. Who will you be endorsing for the 25 New York City mayoral election?
Why?
Yo,
Benzor Amamdani. I was part of the rank the slate, so he was on my slate to begin with. Brad Adrian Adams, Mamdani, Zelma, everybody was on that. I did have Scott on there as well. I was on an anybody but Cuomo train. I think it was hard for me to figure out who would be worse, Cuomo or Eric Adams. But I think Zohar Mamdani is exciting. I think he's talking about things people want to hear. I think there's some national lessons here. Of course, people are going to say that everything doesn't work the same way in that nation, which is true. You can't do the same thing in New York that you do in the Midwest. But I think the context of the message is really important. I think he has the best vision for making this city safer and more affordable. I believe that there are people who are talking about they want to be tough on crime. He's the only one I hear talking about he wants to be serious about safety. And those are two separate things. And we need more of the serious about safety people so that we can change this paradigm we've been using that hasn't been making our community safe.
Okay. What's your vision for a more just and equitable New York City? And how can voters help us get there?
I think we need leaders who understand that the seat they represent is not more important than the people, the seat that they hold is not more important than the people they represent. And I'd like to elect some of those folks more. I think I have to realize that there are people, people who talked about how bad certain systems were. And then I just realized, they just wanted to be part of the system. And so we got to figure out who's actually trying to change and make structural change and who isn't, and try to really do more research into who we're supporting and why. And we can't be, it's a whole nother thing. But my vision of the city are people who are really, people talk about progressive and not progressive. I don't even know what that means anymore. Cuomo said he's progressive at some point. I do know that there are people who will use their position to really take political risks to push past the way things are politically set up, and some people who won't. And I try to hang out with that first crew. I'm not holier than thou, so I'm not into kamikaze missions. I want to keep my job. I want to win my elections. But I think my batting average is really good in trying to make decisions that I think are right for the people of the city, and less about, is it going to help me do something somewhere? And I'm hoping we get more and more people like that into office.
Okay, great. Bonus question, bail reform. Your position on bail reform. Well, the president just signed an executive order, which I don't think it can even affect.
They're all full of shit, man.
states.
I spoke about it earlier. Donald Trump does not care about your safety at all. There's a whole nother conversation, by the way. We're here because too many of us drank that orange Kool-Aid last year because we thought it was going to happen to other people. And now here we are. That's another segment for another time. Eric Adams lied about bail reform when he was running, period. So there is, first of all, bail can be set for particularly violent crimes. We need to be clear about that. Bail was only to be used to make sure people were returning to their court date. Let's be clear about that. People were abusing bail so that poor people who can't afford to pay had to sit in Rikers, and rich folks who can did not.
Right. Could leave Browder.
That's correct. Where we all agree, by the way, is speedy trial. We all should be focused on speedy trial. So you can have your trial. Sadly, if something happens, you got to go upstate. That's where you go, or you go home. But sitting on Rikers Island, the longer you sit in Rikers Island, the data shows that the more likely some violence might happen.
That's right.
And that's a problem. Most of those people are just waiting for trial. But there's been no data that shows that bail reform is causing more violence. And the places that are Republican have more violence than us. How is the mayor claiming to have made the city safer if he's claiming bail reform is a hindrance to keeping them city safe? It doesn't make any sense. Buffalo, by the way, has had one of the steepest decreases on homicides and shootings. That was up until a couple months ago, so I have to check now. But they have the same laws as New York City. So people are lying about this because once we can put a boogeyman out there, then everybody can just focus on that. And I'm praying for the day where facts make a comeback, but we are at a time when nobody wants to look at the facts at all. And you put the facts up, and it is clear that if he was concerned about crime, he'd be actually looking at the Republican states that are run by Republican governors and have the type of laws that he's talking about. And those cities are doing much worse than us. Florida, Miami, doing so much worse than us. But he's focused on kind of the blue states where he can make these boogie people out of. And we have a deputy president instead of a mayor who's doing the best he can to try to make it look like he's Trump Jr. or whatever it is.
Yes.
But it's misinformation. I'm always for finding and fixing. So, like, if somebody shows me something new, I want to look at it. But what Donald Trump is doing is just a distraction. And we keep telling folks that. We told y'all he wasn't going after criminals when he was talking about deportation.
That's right.
And he wasn't. Mm-hmm. So.
Thanks for coming on Corey's Corner. Is there something that we missed that you want to add?
No, but I really think this public safety thing is important. And nobody wants a safer community than the people who have been dealing with this, as you mentioned, decade after decade, who were sandwiched between real violence and crime issues and real over-policing to address the crime. We have the ability to find the balance. Sadly, we haven't had the leader to do that in the past 4 years. But public safety and affordability have been the things I've been talking about for 15 years, and I want to continue to do that, and there's some real solutions, and I'm looking forward to the next administration to try to get them done.
Well, I appreciate your time, truth, and tenacity. Keep fighting the good fight, and know that Corey's Corner is a platform for all truth tellers to come.
Appreciate
For
you.
my listeners, if you found value in today's episode, please subscribe, share, and like. Keep pushing and keep grinding. And remember, it's not about where you start, it's always about where you finish. I'm Corey Pegues, and I always keep it right, not real. Peace.
Once a cop, let it knock, yeah. I for one think we should celebrate redemption instead of condemning it. Corey Pegues, what up? Talk your truth, bruh. Check it out. Once a cop.